Hello, physio practice owners. If you want to know how to step by step grow and scale your physio practice to 1 million revenue per year and beyond in 2025, this is the episode for you. Hello, and welcome to today's episode. It is called Setting Smart Goals for 2025. Now, this is a part of the December series for 2024 as we have a look at the year that was in 2024, what worked, what didn't, and how to plan and execute into 2025 and obviously beyond that. And setting smart goals is a key part of getting that done. All right. So we're going to be talking about how you can break that down into very manageable, easy, parts to make that vision an actual reality for you. All right. Okay. So what's the first one? So let's talk about why goal setting drives a lot of growth. Now, the most successful physio practice owners that we work with, they are very clear from day minus 30, in other words, a month before the year begins, of what their exact goals are for the year in terms of growth. They're very clear about it. And as they grow, what they tend to do really is they look at what worked for the year, what did work, what didn't work, how much growth did they have, how did they grow the way they did, and how can they learn all those things to move to the next year and beyond to take it to that next level. So what I'm going to share with you is everything that we've seen when it comes to growing practice at that next level year on year. All right. What we've seen physio practice owners really do and what we recommend. Okay. So why is goal setting an important thing? Why does it drive sustainable growth year on year? Firstly, like I mentioned, being very clear as to what you want to achieve in the next period, quarter, in this case, a year, becomes very important because you give yourself typically a number or a target to hone yourself and focus on. That's all you do. Everything that you do for the practice as the owner revolves around that particular number or the figure or whatever you want to do. Right? Typically, it's a number is what we're looking at. Right? And also what the goal setting process, it'll align your own team to execute on that vision and the goal. So being very clear and having your leadership team buy into those goals and the vision helps them execute as well. So having really good clarity around it is very important. Okay, once again, having goals like this helps you make decisions on the right thing to grow and take that practice to that next level. It helps you say no to things that you don't want to do and only focus on the very, very few things that are actually in alignment of that. So getting really clear on what you want to do and what you want to achieve makes it very easy to say no and yes to. There'll be a lot more no's than yeses. All right, you need to know exactly what to say yes to. All right. Also, obviously, having certain very clear goals allows you to see your progress. It's very important, right? It's quite obvious. So let's just cover this off. Even if you know it, let's just cover this off. So what does a SMART goal mean, right? So SMART, it's an acronym, all right? It's SMRT. So it stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time specific or time bound. Now, what do they mean? So let's get very clear on them, all right? And what we find is the owners that do really well follow this process when it comes to goal setting, all right? It's very important. Okay, so let's talk about the S part, specific. So this is all about you want to pinpoint to what to achieve, right? And this could be expanding to a new location, for example, all right? What is it exactly that you want to achieve, all right? Measurable, so quantify the progress. It could be one location, or it could be adding 500K in revenue next year. Getting very specific on that, right? Next is achievable. Now, this is a big thing that practice owners, especially inexperienced practice owners, tend to not get so right, and that is achievable. And setting unrealistic expectations will make you feel like you're failing as you're going through a goal, and that'll demotivate you and deflate you and the team who's executing on that vision and the goal to get to the goal. So a huge part of a SMART goal is making sure it's achievable. So in other words, it's a challenge, it's within your capacity and your team's capacity. You know it, right? It's not some crazy goal. If you have a practice that's doing $1 million a year, getting it to 10, for example, that's a huge stretch. It needs a lot of stretching to get there. So keeping it achievable, right? Relevant and directly impacts scaling efforts or patient outcomes, all right? Keeping it relevant to the actual goal you're trying to achieve. Time bound, giving yourself a very clear clear time you want to achieve something by. So is it, do you want an extra location by the end of the year? You want to have 500K revenue 500K extra revenue halfway through the year or the end of the year? Getting really specific on that. Now, here's an example of a good, smart, simple goal, good, simple, smart goal. And that is, right, hire 3 new physios and onboard them by June 2025 to increase weekly treatment capacity by 40%, right? I would even go to the point of breaking that down even more, okay? You'll go hire 3 physios and onboard them by June 2025. That's it, all right? Because you probably have figured out you want to increase capacity by 40%, treatment capacity, and you want to have 3 physios to do that, for example, okay? So that's an example of very clear, okay? So there's numbers around it, there's a data around it, it's very specific, it's measurable because there's numbers and it's time bound, it's attainable in this case, all right? We don't know that exactly, but this is an example. Let's just say it's achievable. And so it's hitting all these SMART components of a goal, right? That's the important part. And whenever you come up with the goals, they need to be very simple. The more complicated the goal is, the higher the chance it will get too confusing and not get achieved. Got to keep it very simple, all right? Hire 3 new physios and onboard them by June 2025. Clear, simple, very smart. Okay. So then when you set clear goals, you can prioritize on what matters most, all right? Like I talked about before, when you have a clear goal, it becomes very easy or easier to say yes to the right things and no to the lot of the no things. It becomes very clear in how you can do that, okay? And where we can do this, these are some examples, all right? These are some examples of prioritizing and scaling and creating SMART goals, all right? Scaling through hiring and staff development, all right? That could be one thing, all right? Increasing profitability per patient visit. Now, these are just examples, right? Once again, this is not very specific. If you notice, there's no numbers in it, right? You need to make sure there's more numbers around it, but these are just some basic examples of areas where you can have a look at having an impact through goals, right? Expanding a brand's footprint locally or regionally. Do you want to be in your suburb? Do you want to be more surrounding suburbs? Do you want to go a bit bigger than that? Do you want to go mobile, right? Enhancing operation efficiency, meaning, okay, there are a certain amount of dollars spent for this particular process. How do we make that efficient? All right. In other words, how do we manage the profit margins here? Okay. The biggest thing is you got to come up with 2 to 3 focus areas that you want to have an impact on, right? Now, the reason why I say that is often one of the biggest mistakes that physio practices make is they tend to have a lot of goals, all right? And it's fine if you have the team to execute it, but what we've found is try and have as little goals as possible, but make them really specific, all right? And the way I've learned about this, and the people who taught me the most are 2 people by the name of Warren Buffett and Jeff Bezos. You may have heard of them. Warren Buffett is the chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, and Jeff Bezos is the founder of Amazon.com. They have entirely grown their businesses by making a very small number of decisions towards a very small number of key goals, because that way they can have really focused attention and energy and resources directed toward those goals. Right? So the key part of this is making sure that you have one, maybe two, or whatever the team can handle, typically one or two important goals you want to achieve, right? That you can focus on for the year. All right. Now, once you've come up with that, once you come up with the goals that really excite you, but they are smart, then it all comes down to, at that point, it's the easiest part, right? As that's the easiest part. Now comes the hardest part about the actions. Now, what we find is to make something work at that level or that next challenging level is, right, you got to break these goals down into daily actions. It's very important, okay, that you break it down to daily actions. Let me give you an example. An example is, let's just say I hired 3 new physios by June 2025. That's the goal, okay? So what do you think some of the actions that you can take towards that every single day? We can start by knowing that it can take a bit of time to get physios on board, but you got to really plan for it. You got to give 6 months, sometimes maybe even more, depending on how many physios there are in the market, right? So the first thing is launch a recruitment campaign. When do you want to do that? In January. And you can even break the recruitment campaign down into writing a copy of that ad, or creating the landing pages for that's actually covered next, right? Writing a copy for it, maybe getting some testimonials from your staff, maybe getting some videography done about your practice or your new renovated facility, all these little things that you think you might need to get the physio. These are little action steps, all right? Next one is build a recruitment focused landing page by February, all right? By putting all the things that we talked about, whether it be staff videos, why they want to work in the practice, how they are happy working in the practice, the facilities, all that kind of thing, what to put in there, and creating that page by 2025 in February. And then actually conducting interviews and onboarding the actual physio in March and May 2025. All right. So it could take a couple of months for you to do that, typically, to train them up, fit them into your culture and the way your practice works. It might take a little while to get them all this sped up to your practice, right? So you can see the big thing is, once you come up with a goal that you really want to achieve, it's really coming down to the smallest micro actions you can do, daily actions, to make that happen. That's what it's all about, right? For example, like I talked about the landing page, there are a lot of things you can put in a landing page. You can actually create that. You can come up with the copy for it. You can come up with the different headlines. You can come up with different videos for the staff. Maybe have a staff bonding session somewhere and create videography around that. You got to hire the videographers for that. Get someone to actually edit it. All these little micro actions that go into actually creating a goal. Don't think about it in terms of daily actions. All right, cool. And then monitor growth with the right metrics. So this is all about, as you are growing, as you are achieving that particular goal, how do you measure it? How do you know you are keeping in track? Now, if it's a numbers-based goal, it's very easy, right? So for example, if it's revenue, if you got 500K you want to achieve in a year or a certain period, it's very easy to quantify that. You can see if you're off track or on track, depending on the time that's gone compared to the revenue that you've raised, right? But how do you do it when it comes to things that are just a one-off, maybe opening up a new practice, all right? This is all about, like I said, coming up with all the list of things that you need to do and getting very specific as to what they are, almost like a checklist of all the things you need to do before you open up a new location. And you're just ticking them off. So you're seeing real progress there, right? You got to measure something and you got to date everything. Certain action to be done by a certain date. If it's not done, why was it not done? What can we improve? What can we do to make sure it gets done on time? And what's the new due date? And how do we 100% make sure that it's going to get done by the new due date? All right, things like that. Or some other KPIs, for example, is that are measurable is revenue per physio, all right? Or patient retention rates, or treatment capacity. What's your utilization rate? How many of those appointments are you using? Things like this. You can actually, there's lots of software out there to measure these things, right? You can dashboards and things like that, right? And your aim as a practice owner with the leadership team is to stay on top of it by really seeing the progress, seeing where you are on track and learning why it's on track and keep repeating that, and see where things are off track and understanding why that is and what you need to do to get it back on track. Simple as that. Okay. And then it's all about getting your leadership team, whether it be a practice manager or the clinical coordinator, that team to really make sure they execute and they keep progress on it as well. All right. That takes a bit of load off the practice owner's hand. So you're creating a team and the team is monitoring the progress towards that as well. Okay. So what are some challenges when it comes to scaling and growing practices, beyond 1 million and 2 and 3 annually and beyond that? One of the biggest that we see is burnout among leadership. Okay. So if you're finding that, and what will typically tend to happen is if you have burnout, obviously your productivity will be affected, right? So at this point, you probably got to ask yourself, what else or who else do we need? Do we need another tier, maybe couple of assistants to help us with these tasks? Because there's a lot of burnout there, right? How do we buy more time if there's a leadership burnout issue? How do we replenish the burnout? How do we create more free time? By buying more time, by having more people to help, right? And the other thing is, practice owners really, one of their primary roles is to sell the entire team of the vision for the practice. That's one of their primary goals. So you need to get whatever your vision of your practice be bought by the entire team. They need to buy into that vision. That means they're executing on the vision. They're excited about the vision and they're buying in on the vision, right? So if there's no buy-in on the vision, it becomes very clunky and very difficult and a lot of effort, all right? Because there's no vision that's fueling it. It's purely effort. So you need to get them to buy into the vision. Overstretching resources. Like I mentioned, when you get really clear on what your goals are, it becomes much easier to say no to the things that don't matter and say yes to the very few things that do, right? So this part is all about that. So sometimes if you're overstretching, and you might realize you are doing things that are not actually helping the goal. You've got to question yourself why you are doing those things. And if they're not helping the goal, why you're doing them, or eliminate them. There's a rule of the 80-20 Pareto principle, or the rule, the 80-20, all right? So basically the rule is 20% of the actions will give you 80% of the result, okay? So focus on the 20% of the actions, all the actions that give you the 80% of the result. And you can even break that down even more. You can go 80-20 on the 80-20, all right? If you go 80-20 on the 80-20, makes 4%. All action will give you 64% of the result. So focus on that 4% of all the actions that will give you 64% growth towards the goals, okay? And the other thing is scaling too quickly. Now, I recommend a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. And I'm just going to go on a little tangent here by saying, in that book, Jim talks about, he basically has done a study on all the successful companies over decades, right? And what has made them be really successful. And one of the key cornerstone principles was that they grew at around the 20-25% mark every single year. All right. Now they just keep chugging along, add that percent every single year. That means if they're growing at that pace, they can scale, they can add resources, staff, time, money, locations, facilities, all that kind of thing at a more manageable pace and get it right, more importantly, all right, because there's not huge change, rather than having 200, 300% growth in a year and having to manage all the growth, because you'll need people to do that, right? Unless you have a lot of help doing that, keeping the scaling and the growth steady and predictable will give you more of a chance to actually hold on to that growth. All right. That's very important. Okay. And as you are going through, celebrate the milestones. All right. This is, and, don't wait till the end of the year till you celebrate. Don't wait till you open up a practice. Don't wait till you hit the 400K mark. Don't wait till you hire 3 physios, right? Remember all the little micro actions that get you there, right? Every time you hit a certain significant milestone for the big goal, celebrate, keep the momentum up, because having a winning feeling is critical to keep winning. Otherwise, if you only think you're winning when you've actually achieved the goal, that means all the other times your potential to think that you're not winning, which will help you not get to the goal at all, right? It'll slow down the goal progress. But if you realize that you're getting things done, you're ticking things off, and you're making progress, it gives you a winner's mindset, not just you, but the whole team as well. That'll keep you moving forward with momentum. Okay, so this is what I mean by acknowledge staff contributions when major goals are hit. Let them know. Remember, they have bought into your vision and they're executing on the vision. Letting them know that certain milestones are achieved. This is great. All right, keep that winning momentum up. The psychology is very important. Okay, and that's a very, very important part, because when you want to grow, and when you want to grow by 400K per year or whatever goals that you set yourself, you'll need people to get you there, and letting them feel like they're part of the success and letting them feel like they're winning often will help you get to that point even faster. All right. So keep the momentum up. So I hope that was useful. Those are some goals setting guidelines to really get you moving forward in 2025 and beyond. Since we're in December 2024, it's a good time to reflect and see what's happening, what we need to really make an impact on next year. I hope that was really useful. Right? If you found that useful, head down to our website, physiomarketing.co. That's .co. And in that, there's lots of articles, lots of things to download, lots of things to watch, listen to, that'll help your practice scale and grow to that next level. There's also a book a call button up there in the top right-hand corner. If you want to if you're looking for some help, who are experts in this area to get your practice to that next level as well. Other than that, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.